The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I not only say the things I need to say, but the things I think you need to hear. And your feelings, they're not a factor. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. So we're going to start out as we do by saying to Josh, Iceman, Jason, Miss Aaron, Mike, Tabby, Javier, Fitz, McShane, El Jefe, El Devlin, El Morte, the guys at the Weathered Report, and to Billy G. Thank you guys for the support. I appreciate it. All right, so let's get into it. So we're going to start out with talking very briefly, because it's been covered elsewhere much more in depth than I'm going to go into. We had the first quote-unquote presidential debate this past week. And I'm saying quotes around that because technically neither Sleepy nor the Cheeto are the actual official nominees yet. See, because we've had this first debate prior to the DNC convention and the Republican National Convention. So neither one of them have officially been nominated as the official candidate yet. Now, some people are saying this was deliberate. Some people are saying it was just piss-poor timing and some sort of last-ditch attempt. But ultimately, anybody who watched it, or anybody who hasn't watched it but has any access to the internet whatsoever, is fully aware what a fucking shit show it actually was in terms of Biden's performance. Trump was surprisingly reserved, and he definitely came off more presidential, in my opinion. He wasn't stammering and rambling, whereas Joe had a tendency to and, you know, do standard Biden shit. And the thing about this whole debate was they took Biden out of circulation for an entire fucking week leading up to this. He was recursed himself to Camp David to prepare for the debate. And in all realisticness, they probably fed him the questions, even though they swear they didn't do it. But CNN's been busted doing that before. They were proven to have given Hillary the debate questions ahead of time. And they probably did the same. They basically admitted in the after interview, like one of the after shows on CNN, where they're like, he had the questions, he had the information, and he still performed this poorly, because literally Biden performed as a dementia patient who's up past their fucking bedtime. He was definitely, whatever cocktail they gave him wasn't dialed in right, because he was not like the State of the Union, loud, yelling, aggressive president. He was the mumbly, sleepy tapioca, needs his night-night and his warm milk. And it really kind of reflects of something a lot of us have been saying for a really, really long time, is this motherfucker is unfit. The fact that the reports came out saying he's unfit to stand trial for potential violations of, you know, secret classified documents and all this other shit. They say he's unfit to stand trial mentally for that, but he's mentally acute enough to try and be the president of the United States. And this debate basically put that rumor to bed. And in a lot of ways, I feel like it was kind of done deliberately. Like they were trying to show that he's infirm so they can run another candidate and have an open convention and nominate someone else. And you could kind of see the vultures circling. And, you know, with a couple of days introspection after the matter, it's kind of funny because it seemed to cause an almost immediate rift within the Democratic Party, which, again, personally, I think it's fucking hilarious that the left has started to eat itself. It's been going that way for quite a while now, in terms of the whole, like, how liberal are you? Well, you're not liberal enough, so you're a fascist too, even though you believe in all the same shit I do, except for this, that, and the other. I mean, you can't be liberal enough for these cocksuckers. It's a competition with them, and they have to be the most liberal on the planet. And if you are not exactly as liberal as them, you're not a real fucking liberal. You're a fascist, or you're a right-wing extremist, regardless of how far from being actually a right-wing extremist you are. And so we have this kind of rift in the Democratic Party, from what I could tell, based on immediately after the debate was over. Well, first off, after the debate was officially over and Trump exits stage left under his own power by himself, walked off the stage, and sure as shit, here comes fucking Jill Biden coming out onto the sage to guide Sleepy off the stage and gently walk him down the 3 steps so he can go over and shake the hands of the moderators. And he was helped down by a stagehand as well as Jill. So he actually had 2 people helping him down 3 steps to prevent him from having an incident. And they left the camera on to capture this, which, again, makes you wonder if it's deliberate. Now, was the media trying to make him appear to be unfit so they could replace him as the nominee? Because the general consensus out of everything I've seen online since this happened is that there is a rift in the Democrat Party, and the rift kind of comes in from the fact that the one side, which would be the media outlet wing of the DNC and the Democratic Party, and that's kind of like the Obama subset, the Obama-controlled fascist, according to the internet theorists, of course, at this point. I have no proof, but this is sound theory in my book, that they wanted to make him look bad so he would recurse himself or step down or say he's going to retire or whatever. Now, there's a lot of other complications that are coming along with this too, just due to the timeline, where certain states are not going to let him have his name taken off the ballot because they're past the cutoff date for names to be on the ballot. And there are certain states that do not have a process for changing a candidate once the paperwork has been filed, even though, like I said, the DNC convention's not for another couple months. It hasn't actually happened yet. It's not coming till August. So, which also says, why do we have these debates now when usually the first one's in September? But again, was it deliberate to make Joe look bad? The point is, it's kind of a moot point because the Joe Biden administration and his inner circle have come out and said, nope, we're still running this. And basically the scuttlebutt on the internet these days is that Joe Biden has been following, if you're not Jill Biden or Hunter or any of his immediate inner circle, what you think doesn't fucking matter. And the Biden family is advising him to keep doing it. And there's a lot of reasons why they could just, they're all horrible fucking human beings. There's no doubt in my mind about that in any way, shape, or form. They would sell their own mothers to fucking get themselves ahead. I guarantee it. They're just all horrible fucking people. But the other side of that is there's a very real possibility that without Biden in that office, the Biden family will be exposed to all kinds of litigation for all the shady, questionable shit that was done under his umbrella of protection, because that will no longer be relevant if the party decides they don't fucking need him anymore. He's no longer a useful puppet. He's no longer, he's been, the emperor's naked and everybody fucking realizes it. So if he does actually lose that position, they stand to lose fucking everything. And I personally find that hilarious. It's like, no, Joe's got to stay the president. They got 127 nonprofits to make sure stay in business. Or whatever the fuck it is, whatever umbrella they're laundering their ill-gotten gains through. But again, I digress. So after the debate is over and they're doing their post-debate little rally or whatever, and Jill's got Joe on stage and she's talking to him like he's a fucking toddler, like, you did so good up there, Joe, you answered all the questions and you told the truth, like literally like she's talking to a fucking toddler, which seems to be how she addresses him because he's got the mind of a fucking toddler. So that was night of, you could see that there was nobody home by the time he got to this after effect. He was standing there looking lost and confused, and she was trying to lead the crowd, really looked like a fucking idiot, trying to call out Trump and say Trump was lying and blah, 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 and they're going to do another term and all this other shit. She is really desperate to hang on to that fucking power structure. Maybe she just thinks if she stays in there long enough, somebody will finally give her a decent fucking wardrobe. I don't know. That worthless sack of twat. But anyway, so, yeah, like I said, that whole family should be in prison for fucking elder abuse. But on the other hand, I don't want you to misconstrue this as me feeling any sympathy whatsoever for Joe Biden being a senile old fuck that's being taken advantage of by his parasitic family. Because, frankly, the man has been a worthless parasite for his entire life. He's a horrible human being. He's lived an absolutely deplorable existence up to this point. So, frankly, this is kind of karmic justice that he's being used and abused by the people that are supposed to love and care for him, because he's a piece of shit and he deserves it. I have no sympathy for him. A lot of people are out there, oh, well, this is elder abuse. They should all be stopped and punished. And if anybody cared about them, they wouldn't let this happen. I'm not one of those people. I'm not in that camp. I don't feel bad for Joe Biden in the fucking slightest. Because, frankly, everything he's done in his life up to this point has led to this. This is a monster of his own making. He's hoisted on his own fucking petard, and he fucking deserves it. It couldn't happen to a more deserving individual, as far as I'm concerned. Fuck him. Fuck everybody that likes him. Fuck anybody that looks like him. Fuck two people who fucking care about him. Fuck his parents for having him. Fuck them for raising him with no morals, no values, and no fucking worth. And frankly, if you think I'm out of line for this, fuck you too. But I digress. So that was Thursday. And Friday comes out. Biden announces, yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're not stepping down. I will not. We are going to take this all the way to the White House. And the spin machine starts to go into overdrive because the problem is Thursday night, every Democratic mainstream media fucking outlet out there, the New York Times, the New York Post, the fucking CNN, MSNBC, all had opinion pieces locked and loaded and ready to go that dropped almost immediately saying how he was infirm and for the good of the country he needed to step down and all this other horse shit. So obviously the party line was supposed to be that, oh, well, you know what, this clinches it. He's got to step down. He's got to do the right thing for the country. If he steps down now, he'll be remembered as a great president, which is utter fucking horse shit, but that's the line they were trying to push. And ultimately, the Biden family said, no, fuck you. We're not done here. We're not done with this. But it did, bring forth to light what a lot of us have been saying for a long time. He's not calling the shots, which means some unelected individual is in there running the country, and more so than the government should be running the country. More power than that position was ever intended to hold. And somebody that is unelected is wielding it, and that's not how America's supposed to work. Which will kind of segue into the next thing I want to talk about, but I'm not quite done harping on Sleepy here yet. So Sleepy comes out, and again, like I said, the next day they come out, White House starts trying to do damage control. Oh, well, the president's pretty much useful. I don't remember exactly how they phrased it because, frankly, I ignore most of the dispatches from the White House, but basically comes out and says, well, the president's basically, his working hours are like 10 to 5, so God forbid there's a crisis between the hours of, 6:30 and fucking 9:30 a.m. Because he's not going to be functional or useful. And there's a term for that. It's called sundowning. You see, when people get to a certain stage and they have the early onset symptoms of dementia or Alzheimer or failing cognitive ability, it's called sundowning because they're only good for daylight hours when they're up and they're well rested and they move around and that's when they're functional. You can't be the leader of the free world, so-called, when you're only available to work about 6 hours a fucking day. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You have to be available 24/7. What are you going to do if there's a fucking crisis at 2:00 in the morning and they have to wake you up to get you out of there? If you're a fucking worthless fucking turnip brain at that point, you're not of any point to be in the position. You're not supposed to be there. You're too fucking old. You have no business being in that position. And anybody who says differently is a fucking liar or fucking delusional or just stupid. I've noticed that the stupid people seem to be getting louder instead of realizing how much they fucked up and going, oh shit, we fucked up. They're doubling down and just getting louder. So all those mouth-breathing stupid motherfuckers who will never hear this because I'm sure they've heard what a phobe or an ist or an it I am, so they're just not going to ever be interested in. And unfortunately, I don't get the hate lessons like I kind of wish I did at this point. I really wish some of these blue-haired fucking land whales that identify as made-up words, I'm a Z, Zim, Zer, well, fuck you, motherfucker. I really wish they would listen to me because maybe you could get through to one or two of them. And if not, I could still use the streams and try and make it look like I actually have more of an audience than the tens of you who I adore that do listen on a regular basis. But again, I digress. I'm getting myself sidetracked. The simple fact of the matter is these things happened, right? And there was like an immediate pushback from the left, and it was kind of like, okay, this looks like this is the play. This is where they're going to take him out, and you could hear people already throwing names out there, or Newsom or Whitmer. Now, one of the funniest things to me is nobody's floating the idea of Kamala being the candidate. Not a single solitary fucking person, which means they may have literally fucked themselves on that one because they are going to alienate everybody who thought she was worth a damn in the first place. Everybody who was placated by them giving her the VP nod Because what do they do if they 25th Amendment him before his term is up and she becomes the incumbent? Well, then they can't really fucking run with that because they know she won't lose. There's no way in hell they could justify trying to say she won because she does not have the fucking pull. She is not even you could not believably lie her into the office. No matter how hard you cheated, nobody would accept those fucking terms if she won. And I've heard a lot of other interesting theories, or I should say read. I don't not heard so much, but I've read some interesting theories online floating around. They're saying, oh, well, she steps down as the VP, takes a appointment to a judicial spot, and then they could put Whitmer in as the VP, and then Joe could step down and Whitmer could be run as the incumbent, and she would have a chance to actually beat the Cheeto. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot entailing with that, because basically the only position where they could get somebody to conceivably step down would have to be a Supreme Court justice position, which gives them very limited options. They could get Sonia Sotomayor, I guess, to retire. That's pretty much all they got. They don't have any real geriatrics on the fucking Supreme Court at the moment that they could easily convince to step down to be replaced. So they're really buying Kamalto out of the fucking out of the seat is not going to likely to work, and I don't see her being altruistic enough to give it up for the party, because they'd have to come at her with a huge fucking flower, a huge offer, and I don't think they have anything that's big enough to say, well, we're going to make Joe step down, but we need somebody else to be the VP because you're not going to fucking win. I really don't believe that cackling harpy has the fucking self-awareness to acknowledge that and be like, no, I can beat Trump. He's just because time flows, and the thing about time is time keeps tomorrow becomes today, and today is yesterday already. Fucking what? Word salad babbling fucking slut. I swear to, and I shouldn't say that. I love sluts. I hate her. So it's besides the point. Ultimately, yeah, so they're, the Biden campus said we ain't fucking going anywhere. It seems like the Democrats aren't real happy about it, but they've got no choice. Their own machinations have put them in a position where they can't. I mean, other than a few outliers that are sitting there going, "Oh, the responsible thing is for him to step down." No, they've made their statement. They've made their stance. So shy of whacking the fucking guy or invoking the 25th, I don't see how that's going to happen. Now, the catch to that is a bunch of the uniparty rhino Republican motherfuckers have already started, oh, well, he's inept, he's unfit, we should be enacting the 25th Amendment right now. And it's like, no, you dumb motherfuckers. This is one of those things to me that is evidence of the uniparty's existence, despite everybody wants to say, oh, the uniparty is a conspiracy theory, the uniparty is not a thing. No, these motherfuckers hang out at the same country clubs, they go to the same colleges, they know the same people, they take money from the same fucking donors. The uniparty is a real thing. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a simple truth. All you have to do is look at how the bureaucracy that has been put in place by this government to enrich and aggrandize itself functions. Realistically, it's controlled opposition. It's a lot of fucking posturing and bullshit. And there, like I said, there's about 7 or 8 people in the entire system that might be worth a fart in a high fucking wind. We got Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, Mike Lee. Those are realistically the only 3 that spring immediately to mind. I'm sure if I thought hard about it, I could probably come up with more. I'm actually starting to kind of dig Fetterman after his trip to the mental facility to get a little rehab. All of a sudden, he came out a lot more base than he went in. So I'm kind of digging Fetterman too in a lot of ways. I mean, he's still too lefty for me, but at the same time, some of the shit that he's saying at this point, at least he's being realistic. But again, I digress. Yeah, so a bunch of these like uniparty rhino assholes are, we got to invoke the 25th. We got to invoke the 25th. And that works for them because that way they can be the bad guys in the eyes of the left for taking Sleepy out of office and allowing them to put a more suitable candidate in place. Now, again, the reason that bites them in the ass is they cannot take Kamala out of the fucking equation without looking like complete fucking hypocrites, without looking like they know she can't win. That's why they don't want to run her. They know that regardless of how this pans out, she is not the one they want in office. Now, maybe she'll be a pliant or willing puppet once she gets, kind Because let's be honest, if Joe were to win the election, which I don't see how the fuck that's going to happen he's got his own party talking about how he shouldn't be in the office. So I don't see him winning. I don't see them being able to fix it enough to make it convincible, because nobody at this point is going to believe that he gets more votes. So ultimately, it'll come down to, RFK versus Trump as opposed to Biden versus Trump. Not that RFK will be, any real threat, because he's running as an independent, so he's not going to have Democrat money backing him. He's not going to have all those Democrat voters. But I think a lot of the Democrat voters are more inclined to peel off Biden and go vote for Kennedy, thinking he might actually have a swinging chance. But I don't see him getting enough of the libertarian vote and enough of the Democratic vote to get in, and I don't see him getting any of the Republican vote, because the conservatives don't like the fucking guy. So that's kind of the way things are looking to my untrained, uneducated, unindoctrinated, however the fuck you want to look at it, to my way of looking at things. That's kind of where we're at on things. So that brings me to the next thing that I'm thinking of in my train of thought, and this is kind of going to be a stream of consciousness episode, as they all are. Believe it or not, this is a lot of off the cuff. I've talked about it before, and when I talk to a lot of you guys or other podcasters, I'm realistic. I know who listens to me. It's other hobbyists who found me through whatever social networking and all this other stuff, where we find each other and we listen to each other. And I found a lot of great friends through the show. And I don't consider you guys just my listeners or just the shows I listen to. I consider you guys my friend, because I interact with a lot of you guys, and I on a regular basis, like daily, more than I talk to my own family. I'm not my immediate family, but I'm like more than I talk to my extended family, more than I talk to a lot of people. I talk to you guys, via the social media platforms and whatnot, and occasionally live through Skypes or Zoom meetings or Teams calls or whatever. I sit down with my bullet points and I just kind of riff on where we're at. So this my next thought in my notes as I was putting together the notes for this episode is, so if you're not really aware of it, because not all of us follow this stuff, there's been a swing in the global politics too. It's not just that this politics in America, because I know a lot of us kind of have this myopic view of the world where we're only worried about our immediate selves and our immediate situation, our immediate shit. But there is still a global community out there, and a lot of Europe is seeing a swing back towards the conservative side of things. I've talked about the whole pendulum movement of how society and societal trends go, and it goes one direction and then it starts to go back the other way, and it hits the middle ground for a few seconds, and then it starts to massively overcompensate in the other direction, because once you start making that movement back towards the center, what it takes to get moving that direction makes it move into the other extreme. So right now, Europe is seeing a lot of pushback. They have a lot of elections going on, and in a lot of ways, the conservative movements are winning. The EU has recently been taken over by a conservative leadership. France had elections before. I mentioned it before, where Macron said, "We're going to do we're going to do the whole disband parliament or vote on everything thing," and that didn't really work out for them, because in all their primaries, literally conservatives swept the floor with them. It was like 90% of the vote or something went to conservative candidates. And so that should tell you where the way the trends are going, where the people are kind of fed up with the shit. And subsequently, after all these conservative seats were, all these counties, all these districts, all these, whatever the hell they're called in France, were flipped to conservative candidates, well, the commie leftist ideologues did what commie leftist ideologues do when they don't get their way, and proceeded to lose their shit. So Paris has been on fire for days. They're rioting in the streets. All the foreign-born Islamic transplants, I don't really want to call them immigrants, because they didn't come to the community to integrate and become part of the culture and part of the society. They came there as migrants to live their way of life and try and enforce their beliefs on the citizenry of the countries that they were moving to. A lot like is what's going on in America now, but it started in Europe, and that's usually the way it goes. The trends start there, and then they come across the sea, and we get a little buffer, but nobody pays fucking attention, so this stuff goes unnoticed until it becomes a problem. And they were having massive amounts of Middle Eastern Islamic migrants coming illegally into all of their countries and being given refugee status, kind of like what's going on here, where they're flooding across the borders undocumented, causing problems everywhere they're going, and the indigenous native populations are fed up with it. They are sick of it. And I'm going to say something that may bother some people, but frankly, at this point, I don't fucking care. And if you're unaware of that by now, hey, you must be new. Welcome to the show. So there is a simple fact that I've seen in a few posts, and some of them are extremely, like, even to me, they come off as something, you might be a little going a little too far on that. There's a right way to immigrate. There's a wrong way to immigrate. And some people are literally there because they're trying to make their lives better. But a lot of them ain't at this point. It's an invasion. It's not an immigration. But we've got all these people now taking to social media, and a lot of younger people, which is the surprising part, that are saying things like, Europe has always been traditionally white. So it's not wrong for us to want to try and preserve our culture and live according to our values just because a bunch of Muslim men are coming in here and assaulting people, raping women, committing violent acts because in their culture it's acceptable. We do not have to accept their culture to the point where they are detrimental to our own existence. And for a long time, all these leftist organizations and these commie fucking socialist pieces of shit are saying, no, you have to honor and respect their culture, even though everything about their culture dishonors and disrespects your culture and your very fucking existence. So the people in Europe are getting fed up with that, and they're pushing back, and they're sick of it. So this massive right-wing wave has swept through a lot of Europe, and a lot of these politicians that are getting elected over there are running on campaigns of, we are going to deport all these illegal motherfuckers. We are going to kick them the fuck out of the country. We're going to stop feeding them. We're going to stop clothing them. We're going to stop housing them. And we're going to make them go the fuck away because they have not tried to integrate to our society. They have tried to bend our society to their belief structures, what they think is right and how they think we should be living. And that's not how this fucking works. And, it sounds very similar to a lot of the rhetoric coming out of the right in the United States. And it's actually some of the rhetoric I happen to agree with, even though, it will have any left-leaning individual who's beyond the reasonable capacity of, because like I've said before, there's a very long period of my life where I was considered left-leaning until you move the fucking bar so goddamn far that all of a sudden I'm a right-wing extremist just for wanting to be left the fuck alone and being able to defend myself and keep my fucking paycheck. So we have this pushback now where they're at, multiple countries are talking about closing their borders, expelling the foreign threat, getting these people who refuse to live according to the values of the society they came to out of the fucking pool because they're causing fucking problems. And that kind of feeds back into, so they lose the popular vote. They lose all the governmental backing of their beliefs. So what do? They take to the streets, they start rioting, they start looting, and they start burning shit because that is the leftist mentality in a fucking nutshell. It's an emotionally stunted, developmentally challenged fucking way of looking at life, and it just goes to show that these kids were not disciplined as children because their reaction to adversity is to throw a fucking tantrum. The only difference is that between a tantrum being thrown by a 5-year-old because they're not getting the toy they want or they're not, feeling like they're being treated fairly, and the reaction of a fucking 28-year-old is a fucking 28-year-old is capable of a lot more destruction and a lot more chaos purely due to physical development and general cunning and shitty attitudes about, property rights and things like that, and believing they're entitled to whatever they want. And since they didn't get their way, they're going to fuck shit up until people tell them they're right and tell them they're special and acknowledge how fucking wonderful they are. And so that's going on in Europe right now. And true to type, America's by and wide ignoring that this shit is going on without the slightest hint of irony, because realistically, if you listen to some of the rhetoric out of the usual suspects here in the States, you get the remaining squad members. Because, oh yeah, by the way, Jamal Bowman lost his re-election. That was fucking beautiful. He lost his bid terribly. He's out. AOC got back in. I don't know how the fuck that happened. That bitch is fucking worthless. But yes, but I digress. That was just a footnote. Haha. You should have. Guess pulling that fire alarm didn't do you any favors there, huh, buddy? They're just some cringy squad bullshit, and the country's getting sick of your shit, so congratulations. But I digress. So the way I'm looking at it is like I said, I tend to watch what goes on in Europe as kind of a canary for America. And yeah, European people are swinging back towards the conservative side. And if you just look around in America, you can kind of see that people are getting frustrated. The people are getting fed up with the pride stuff. People are getting fed up with having this leftist, ridiculous commie bullshit agenda shoved down their fucking throats. And it's getting to the point where it's they're not afraid to say. I mean, a lot of us have never been afraid to say we're sick of this shit in the first place, but they're getting more vocal about it. The opposition's getting stronger. The likelihood that the left is going to lose its stranglehold on this power is getting higher. So subsequently, we have to start looking at the possibility that there are going to be more Summer of Love type incidents leading up to and post-election. Like when Trump got elected the first time, there were riots. People tend to forget that because we in this country have the fucking long-term memory of a fucking goldfish in a lot of ways. There were riots in 2016 when Trump got elected, or well, in 2017 when Trump got inaugurated. And it was, I mean, they weren't huge. They weren't terrible. They were nothing on the Summer of Love in 2020. But, and again, that's probably what we can look forward to once Trump gets elected and he starts trying to enact his policies to, you know, MAGA or whatever, however you want to look at it, try and turn this ship a little bit. Like I said, we need a Millier. We don't need a fucking Cheeto. But he's whatever they can do to try and disrupt and nullify his presidency, they're going to. So there will be riots in the streets. There will be violent outbreaks. There will be, if you're anywhere near a fucking deep blue city and the election looks like it's going the way it's going to go, I would really recommend doing what you can to try and get the fuck out. I mean, I don't see it ending well. And the thing about that is, the caveat to that is, a lot of the people that are fed up with this shit are not in these urban areas. So the urban areas, the deep blue strongholds, are probably going to fucking wind up eating themselves, because kind of like what's happening during the Floyd riots and all that, and all the other BLM bullshit that was going on. And, you know, and again, just as a throwback, because I haven't had to say this in a couple of years because it wasn't relevant, but it's not that I don't believe Black Lives Matter. It's that I believe the organization BLM was a fucking Soros-funded terrorist organization, and they took advantage of what could have been a halfway decent cause if it had been handled right, and they turned it into a fucking grift. And they used it as an excuse to burn down cities and steal shit. And it did nothing for the black community. So, yeah, when those assholes, the Antifa, Soros-funded, oh, look, a pallet of bricks. You know, when all that shit starts happening again, the deep blue strongholds are going to eat themselves, because just like happened then, when they start saying things like, we're coming to the suburbs, they're going to hear a lot of bolts sliding, a lot of actions working, and a bunch of people saying, well, we're tickled to hear you say that, Buttercup. Because, like, I can't speak for anybody else, but the closest bigger town to where I lived, yeah, they had a little bit of bullshit going on, but the same night where they started saying, yeah, well, we're coming out from here, that night, I could tell you from personal experience, I sat out on my front porch. Several of my neighbors were also sitting out on their front porches that night. Now, I was laid off for COVID, so I didn't really have anywhere to be or anything to do, so I stayed up until the sun came up just to make sure nothing was going to happen. But I saw lots of long guns. I saw shotguns. I know I had my carry piece on me. I had my I need to kill a car gun out with me. It wasn't that we were anticipating anything bad happening. It was more, we just wanted to make sure the bad shit stayed out of our neighborhoods, because at the end of the day, that's really all you got. I mean, you can only do so much, and your first priority has to be keeping you and yours safe. You can't help anybody else if you're fucked yourself, you know? So we did that, and it was, you know, a communal thing. I mean, we watched out for each other. We checked on each other. People kept in communication. Believe it or not, there were actually groups of young people that set up checkpoints at the main entrances to the town I live in that were not really, you know, not doing anything per se, just kind of keeping an eye out in case caravans were coming out of the town where shit was going on towards, you know, our neck of the woods. And everybody's just a phone call away at this point. So they would have found, they actually did find one U-Haul truck. Apparently, they had a bunch of people from Chicago that were coming down this way. They got intercepted by the cops, which I found to be hilarious. Because realistically, the cops probably did those assholes in the U-Haul a favor because they would have wound up fucking planted somewhere. So, yeah, but that I do see that being an issue if Trump gets elected. The left is not just going to sit on their laurels and accept it because, contrary to what every fear-mongering asshole in politics that is got a D after the name wants to say, conservatives don't riot. Conservatives don't loot. No matter how bad they try and spin January 6th as an insurrection, it really wasn't. It was a bunch of pissed off people that showed up. Because if you're being even slightly objective, you stop and you look at the thing and you say, you have the most highly armed populace on the planet. Literally, America, for private gun ownerships, outnumbers everybody else in the fucking world, ratio-wise. The bulk of those weapons are in the hands of the people who you're accusing of an insurrection. And your argument is they almost overthrew the government in an unarmed coup. If those people wanted to commit a coup, there would have been bodies all over the fucking place because, again, most highly armed group of private citizens on the fucking planet. And if, a lot of people just have them, but the vast majority of people who have them, use them, are proficient with them. They know how to use them properly. And I'm not talking about criminal elements and thugs and hoodlums that get their hands on guns. They get a fucking Glock 19 with a 90-round fucking magazine on it because they're fucking retards, and then they put an auto switch on it, and they spray and pray and can't control and just hope they fucking hit something. No, I'm talking about your average conservative-leaning gun owner who goes out, practices, can put, lead on steel from 100 fucking yards reliably and consistently. Those are the people they're trying to say attempted to overthrow the government without lifting a finger in violence, which is fucking retarded. Those are also the people that are fed up with the left-wing bullshit, and when the riots do commence, they're going to sit back and watch these cities burn because we're sick of them, and they're going to view it as a fucking purge. They're going to view it as we're getting rid of the bad things, the bad elements, let them destroy themselves. When they try to come to our towns, that's when the problems start. And again, I'm not saying I hope any of this happens. I really hope we get through the world, or get through this without the world fucking ending. But I'm also realistic enough to be aware of the possibility. And I'm not saying I know the future. I'm not saying I know people that well, but I do pay attention to things. I do see how people deal with things. And I'm willing to bet the urban individuals who are going to be thinking they're self-righteous and destroying shit, and the millions of foreign actors who will probably be activated during this time of unrest. I mean, it's been proven at this point that South America, Central America are emptying their fucking prisons, and there are literal entire groups of gang members setting up shop and setting up cells in the United States now. Venezuelan gangs, Ecuadorian gang members, fucking MS-13 members out of Chicago or out of Mexico are setting up in Chicago. The like international cartels are sending their fucking people here. And when the shit hits the fan, I'm sure they're going to try and go active. But again, as of right now, these people are in the densely populated urban settings. They're going to cause a lot of chaos and damage and destruction in those densely populated urban settings. And when they start trying to go to the suburban settings where there are people that are a little more conservative leaning and a little more interested in protecting their property rights and a little less empathetic towards their human fellow man who don't share the same values, it's not going to go the way these fucking people think they do. They're going to think it's going to be like the assholes that were getting interviewed during the BLM riots. Oh, we come into the cities, we come into the suburbs, we come to take what y'all got because everything here is gone. And you're a daisy if you do, motherfucker. So, and I hate to say it that way because it sounds like I'm looking forward to it and encourage it, and I'm really not. I don't want to see things go badly. I don't want to see things go sideways. I don't want to see people get hurt. I want to see people grow the fuck up and act like rational human beings again. I want people to remember that you can disagree with somebody without hating them, without even disliking them. You can just not agree with them. There was a time when we used to be able to disagree and still be civil and still treat each other with respect and dignity. Somewhere along the line, people got convinced that their feelings meant more than, treating each other with respect or dignity. And if their feelings weren't acknowledged and validated, somehow they were being disrespected because nobody taught them the fucking difference. And that's kind of on the older generations for raising a bunch of spoiled, entitled, pampered motherfuckers. But that's also on the state because the state kind of tried to take the parents out of the equation when you've got the kids for 8 to 9 hours a day in a industrial educational system where you're not actually teaching them anything other than how to be good drones and good producers, just useful enough to push the buttons and not smart enough to fucking question why they're doing it every day. Making those kind of drones. So realistically, it was a group effort. We fucked up as parents by handing the reins over to people who were unworthy. And it's an inherent flaw in the system. I mean, it creates bureaucracies and bureaucrats who are literally worth nothing without their position. And if their position does nothing, but it still needs to exist to give them worth. Which brings me to the last thing I want to touch on today, since we're getting a little long-winded here. And that was one of my big happy moments as the week wraps up. Supreme Court struck down the Chevron doctrine, which makes me happy in a lot of ways because it pulls the teeth out of all these governmental agencies that have been dictating policy to businesses, individuals, everyone for decades without actually having the power of being able to write laws behind it. Now, see, what the Chevron doctrine is that the courts should defer to the judgments of experts in people of expertise in certain areas. Now, a lot of people that are saying, well, this is a bad thing that they got rid of the Chevron doctrine because now it's up to the judges. They're giving the judicial branch too much power. No, actually what it's doing is taking power that was never intended to be under the executive branch through these agencies away from the branch because they're not supposed to have that power. What it is actually doing is making Congress do their fucking jobs and litigate, pass effective, well thought out, well organized, and voted upon laws instead of allowing these unelected bureaucrats to just dictate fucking policy. So this is a good thing as it kind of pulls the teeth out of things like, the Wildlife Fishery Board saying, oh, well, you got to pay us this much, or then the EPA saying, well, you have to pay us $3,000 to dispose of this turtle nest. Meanwhile, they don't give a shit what you do with the turtles, but you still have to pay them for having to come out and say, oh, look, these turtles are here, and you're trying to build a building and you have to relocate them. So, it's and my favorite one, it kind of neuters the ATF because fuck the ATF. I like my dog. I don't need it getting shot. Worthless bastards trying to fucking... Okay, I'm going to go off on a tear here because let's face it, the ATF has put a lot of guidelines and regulations in place that carry the weight of law prior to the Chevron doctrine being thrown the fuck out. So basically you have a bunch of unelected bureaucrats dictating policy and writing laws that don't actually carry the legal weight of law, but they were recognized as the authorities on the matter, which is ironic because at a Capitol Hill hearing, the head of the ATF at one point said, I am, and I quote, I am not an expert on firearms. If you're not an expert on firearms, you shouldn't be running the fucking ATF. So Chevron being struck down is a beautiful thing. It's going to have ripple effects and long-lasting impact in a lot of ways. A lot of assholes on the left are now, again, doing what they do every time the Supreme Court does anything. They're crying about how the Supreme Court needs more justices. They need to pack it. They need to stack it. They need to impeach the justices, basically for doing their fucking jobs and saying, you know what, this isn't constitutional, so we're not fucking allowing it. Because that is the point of the Supreme Court. That is the point of the judicial branch of the government, is to determine whether or not something is a constitutionally legal and acceptable thing. That is the power they have. That is the power they hold. That is a check and a balance to the fucking executive branch and to the legislative branch. Now, the legislative branch has the power of being the ones who are supposed to be writing the laws. They're supposed to be deciding what policy is, what the elected people want them to do to represent them in this country, and the things that are fair and non-repugnant to the Constitution and fair to the population. So they have to sit down and actually work instead of just getting up there and talking shit about whatever particular issue they're stumping on or whatever fucking pet project they're trying to work through to edify their own fucking donors. So they're going to have to actually get back to work now because they can't rely on all these government agencies and all these bureaucrats to do their fucking jobs for them. And it's a beautiful thing. And it makes me happy. I almost shudder to say it. I'm happy with something the government has done because the Supreme Court seems to be acting in a way that seems like, holy fuck, they're doing their jobs. And of course, the usual leftist assholes who don't understand the Constitution have their dissenting opinion, and Sonia Sotomayor wrote the dissenting opinion saying that it was a problem, and I'm sure she's going to go home and cry because it's so hard being a justice, and I'm sure Ketanji Brown, whatever the fuck her name is, she's probably confused as to why they would do this, because that would mean then all of a sudden Congress is going to have to start writing a lot more laws, because she obviously doesn't know how the fucking Constitution works. So she's probably very confused that Congress would have to take up this responsibility that they were supposed to be doing for the last 40 fucking years, that they haven't been doing their fucking jobs because they're a bunch of lazy parasitic pieces of shit. Because frankly, she's too dumb to be sitting on the bench, and I don't know how the fuck she got there. Other than that's right, they had to nominate a black chick because Biden had made a promise that he was going to diversify the seating on the bench, not by putting somebody who's qualified in, but by putting somebody who ticks some boxes. So yeah, DEI strikes yet again, which is kind of funny because it is failing spectacularly everywhere it's being implemented. Just a little few side notes. I don't talk too much like nerdy shit or cultural shit, just because I tend to focus on the things that are making me angry. And when it comes to like TV shows and movies and shit like that, if something makes me angry, I just ignore it. I don't consume it. I don't partake in it. I don't fucking give it the time of day. I have things that I like that are kind of nerdy. I'll admit it. I've always been a little fucking nerdy. I loved Star Wars until Disney got a hold of it, basically. I loved all the extended universe properties. I loved all the prequel stuff. I loved all the Old Republic stuff. And I think the Thrawn trilogy was one of the greatest things I ever fucking read. But I digress. I mean, fuck, I recently got a lightsaber and that made me happy. I don't care. Judge me all you want. Once I get my little recording studio set up here, you'll actually see, when I start doing video stuff, you'll see some nerdy shit in the background. I really like Cyberpunk. I got a bunch of Cyberpunk shit. I got I'm a grown-ass man that has a bullhorn just for shits and giggles. I have my nerdy issues. But just to tie back into the whole DEI is a fucking failing concept, Disney is just losing their ass. Tractor Supply Company recently learned a multi-billion-dollar lesson because it came out that all this DEI stuff, and they were supporting pride rallies and parades and had a bunch of policies in place that really went against the general belief structure of the large portion of the people who shop at Tractor Supply store. And now, granted, after they released, basically what happened is they lost a couple $2 billion in the span of a couple days, and they said, "Hey, you know what? We fucked up. We're disbanding our DEI department. We're no longer funding any, outside of the workplace type." Anything, no funding pride stuff, no funding parades and marches, any of that shit. Nothing that doesn't have to do with running our business is getting any money from us. We're sorry, we didn't mean to piss off our customer base. Basically, they got the Bud Light treatment, and it hit them hard. And in a side effect to me, something that I would need to think about too, people who may be like, yeah, I'm never buying shit from Tractor Supply Company again. That is a little too leftist. That is trying to cancel somebody. These guys learned a very hard lesson, apologized, and backpedaled. It's beholden to us to forgive them and treat them accordingly. We have to be the bigger person and show them that they're doing what the public wants will be rewarded with returned loyalty. I mean, yes, be skeptical at first, be cautious at first. Don't trust with your eyes open. Don't ask for blind trust. So, but at the same time, if we do not reward companies coming back to the fold and adjusting their values accordingly, and it's not that I'm saying I have anything against, the alphabet people or anything else. I mean, the LGBT part, I'm okay. It's LGBT and adult tees. Anybody that's trying to push that, like, I have a trans child. No, the fuck you don't. But you know what I mean. The sane LGBT people, like mostly my generation, the Gen X people, before things went off the fucking rails, the ones that are actually decrying all the bullshit that's going on and all the disgusting stuff that was going on in the name of pride in the I mean, for most of the month it was pretty tame, but right at the end you got a whole bunch of these fucking, particularly the San Francisco Pride Parade was fucking utterly disgusting. On the last day of Pride, they, grown ass, naked fucking men walking down the street in front of children, swinging their dicks around. There's nothing wrong with being proud of who you are. There's nothing wrong with embracing your true self. Walking around naked in front of a bunch of kids and there were literally dudes blowing other dudes on the street, people having manual sexual stimulation. There was a guy getting pissed on in a fucking pool, like a kiddie pool. That is not pride. That is perversion. See, when you want to do that shit out in public, that is a kink. That is you want to be watched. You want to be seen. When you want to do that shit in front of children, you're a fucking pedophile, and you belong feet first in a wood chipper so we can see the look on your face as you realize what you did wrong. So that kind of ridiculous shit should not be acknowledged, should not be embraced, should not be. You have nothing to be proud of at that fucking point. When Pride was all about, acceptance and equality and fair treatment, when the Pride parades were a bunch of, gay people and lesbians and bisexuals and even transsexuals who were out and, but they were dressed and they were clothed and they were like, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. That's fine. When we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your kids, fuck you, you're fucking pedophiles. You are trying to indoctrinate children. You are trying to force your beliefs into other people's lives, and you fucking need to stop. But yeah, so when they go back to a status of we're going to do our business, we're going to run our business, and we're not going to try and pander to one group or another, and we're not going to financially back these causes that have fuck all to do with our business just in the name of trying to get a social credit score, they deserve to be, like I said, cautiously, tentatively brought back into the fold. Okay, you fucked up. As long as you don't backslide, we got your back. But realize you've been warned. You start pushing this shit, we're going to stop spending our money here. Because realistically, if you take away all the incentive to come back into the fold, why should they? Why not double down and try and get more money out of the people that are obviously not their fucking base? And now that's not to say there aren't some LGBTQIA, LMNOP, STD identifying fucking farmers out there, but I really don't see that being a majority of them. I don't see it being significant enough where a national corporation could maintain a client base off of it. So maybe, and it seems to be a trend across the board. Like I said, this kind of started with the whole Disney thing, and Disney's losing their ass due to DEI, and they've managed to kill the Star Wars universe, and their newest series, The Acolyte, is just hot garbage. They've just pissed all over every ounce of canon that had anything to do with the original thing. And they're saying with the new movies that are coming out that they're not writing them for the original fan base. Well, and see, that's just a bad business model to me. That's when you're pandering to a bunch of people that were never fans of the original at the expense of the massive fan base that made the original a juggernaut to begin with. That's bad business, and it's ideologically guided bullshit that's going to wind up costing them a shit ton. And like I said, the pendulum's swinging back the other way. Just being a diverse casting or a diverse storyline that highlights the struggles of these marginalized, pissed upon groups. Well, when you're dealing with marginalized, pissed upon groups, at some point you need to realize the mass market, the mainstream, the target audience isn't going to want to fucking hear it. I mean, and it'd be one thing if it was like done in a way that was well executed, but I've said this before. A lot of these stories, a lot of these plots, a lot of these agenda-pushing horseshit ideas that are pissing all over established intellectual properties, on top of that, they're not done well. I mean, it'd be one thing if the elements they were trying to incorporate felt organic to the story, but they're not written that way. They're not written well. They're written like, oh, look at how gay we are. Look at how non-binary we are. Look at, pay attention to this. Acknowledges this is a key factor in the entire fucking story, when it should realistically, because in real life, and once you get outside of the auspices of like social media, most of the people I know that fall under the umbrella of LGBTQ, well, I don't know very many Qs. I know a couple people that are pretty fucking weird, but it's not like I hang out with a lot of furries or anything. And if I do, they don't tell me, and I don't know, so they're they're passing as normal. So, but I digress. When it comes to the original rainbow people, the people who didn't fucking irritate me every time they open their fucking mouth, because I didn't factor that into their existence other than a interesting little footnote to who they are, because it wasn't the defining trait of their personality. I think most of those people would probably agree with me that there's a difference between acceptance and fucking celebration. These people want to be celebrated. They want to celebrate shit that is statistically such a minute portion of the country, such a minute portion of the population, but they want to celebrate it like it's the main thing, like it's the key thing, like it's so vital and fucking important that it be acknowledged and it be celebrated. When, like I said, you go back a generation, you go back to my people, you go back to the people that didn't make who they were fucking the defining characteristic of their lives, they're a lot easier to be with. They're a lot easier to deal with. They're a lot easier to be around because they're authentic. They're more genuine. Their entire personality isn't wrapped up in look at how special I am. It's not wrapped up in look at, this makes me edgy and unique and I need to be celebrated and honored and worshiped for it. No, it's I want to be accepted for the person I am, not for who I'm attracted to, not for what I do in the privacy of my own life. I just want to be treated like a decent human being, and I will do the same. And that's something that got lost somewhere along the way. That message got lost, and people went out of their fucking minds. They went absolutely batshit insane and lost their fucking way. And now we're seeing the pushback. We're seeing the blowback. And unfortunately, a lot of really amazing things got destroyed along the way because they were trying to pander and kowtow to these things that were so marginalized and trying to mainstream a bunch of things that were not mainstream. And the tolerance and the acceptance that was part of what got us here was hijacked by a bunch of people who are fundamentally fucking horrible. And that's the thing. When you try and normalize certain aspects, they're not normal because they shouldn't be. And if you have to force them into being normalized, then there's a reason why that's not organically happening. So like all the people that are trying to force all this rainbow bullshit onto children, it's utterly fucking ridiculous. It's inorganic. It's not natural. And I say that with the complete mindset of understanding that who you're attracted to and what you like and all these other things, when allowed to develop in a natural and organic manner, can go either way. There's nothing that says that, I'm not one of those people who's like, well, if you're not heteronormative, then you're fucking wrong. No, I honestly, I don't give a shit. I don't care what you like. I don't care what you're into as long as it's another consenting fucking adult. I don't care. It's irrelevant to me. It has no bearing on my life. If you're a good person, I'll be your friend. I'll be your buddy. I'll be your fucking huckleberry. If you're a piece of shit, no matter how you try and justify, spin it, or push it, I don't have time for you. You're a fucking waste of space. You're a waste of flesh. You're a waste of fucking life. And unfortunately, you're probably one of these assholes who wants to be celebrated and lauded for nothing other than your mere existence. So on top of that, I probably hate you for that too. And when I was younger, I used to say things like, I'm more of a sommelier of hate. I hate with flair and style and flavor. And nowadays, I've realized I'm just kind of sort of this. I forget exactly how it was said. One of our dear friends of the show, Beard of Liberty, said something at one point where basically like Aaron coalesced out of a volcano of grouchiness or something like that. I forget the exact phrasing. It was late, but that was at the time it struck me as just being so beautiful because I was like, dude ain't wrong. I've basically been grouchy my entire life. I've just kind of refined it over the years, and ultimately, it's just my threshold for stupidity keeps getting lower and lower. Meanwhile, the general populace of this world is getting dumber and fucking dumber, and it's because the powers that be are actually encouraging it and actually guiding things that direction and steering things where they build these ideas of like, oh, well, you need to go to the halls of academia and learn to be educated and be smart when you're really being indoctrinated and fucking stupid and you're being taught not to question anything. And anybody that says or does anything that disagrees with what you're being told to think is automatically the enemy and must be destroyed because their ideology and their beliefs are a threat to yours. Even if their beliefs are simply to leave everybody the fuck alone and let them live their own lives, they are the enemy and must be destroyed because they don't think that they should be forced to do the same things that you think they should be forced to do. It's utterly fucking ridiculous and stupid and juvenile. And the fact that these educated idiots cannot fucking see that for themselves tells you how wrong our system has gone, because they're being taught not to look at the obvious. I mean, the objective fucking truth is offensive to these people, and that's a state of affairs that cannot stand. But anyway, so we're coming up on the 1 hour mark here, so I'm going to put a pin in this now and say thank you for listening, and for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord, come and interact, be a part of the show, buy the merch, support your favorite creator, or support me. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.